3 men rescued at sea after drifting over a month. The iconic central government building reopened after 2 decades. And opposition's vote of no confidence rejected.
This is National EMTV News with Lorraine Genia.
Good evening and welcome to Thursday's news. 3 men from the neighbouring Pacific Island nation of Kiribati were found adrift just off Solomon Islands by a fishing vessel belonging to the Madang-based RD Tuna Cannery. The 3 had survived at sea for 36 days before being rescued on the 25th of this month, which was Good Friday of the recent long Easter weekend. PNG Customs, the International Office of Migration, the National Fisheries Authority, Madang disaster officers and the RD management gathered in Madang yesterday to discuss what needs to be done. Rachel Shise with this report from Madang.
One of the survivors is a father of 3 children, the other is the father of 2, and the other is yet to have a family. They were drifting at an estimate of 780 miles away from where they were fishing as a result of rough seas and strong currents.
Very heavy and young boat.
The 3 survived for 36 days out in the open sea, feeding on raw fish and drinking rainwater that they were able to get hold of. 5 vessels passed them during the 36 days out at sea, and RD's vessel was the 6th that spotted them.
Our next priority as of the moment is to repatriate them the soonest, so they will be reunited with their families already.
The PNG Customs officers are currently in talks with the New Zealand Embassy, who's in charge of the 3 survivors.
So once that is done, then they get in touch with the business office, the National Office of Migration, to try and secure some funding for the repatriation back to Kiribati.
The PNG Customs has assured that the 3 will make it back to their families by the end of this week or early next week. Meanwhile, the RD Tuna Cannery management is taking care of accommodation and other necessities for the 3 till they make it back to their homeland in Kiribati. Rachel Shise, National EMTV News, Madang.
Just 2 months after the opening of the refurbished Pineapple Building in Port Moresby, another iconic building was opened yesterday after being restored to its former glory. The central government office was constructed in 1974 and given to the PNG government by the Australian government as an independence gift in 1975. The building became the home of the first government of the independent state of Papua New Guinea.
After 18 years of abandonment, the central government office was officially reopened yesterday after a much-needed restoration exercise. The occasion was marked with celebration. Just 20 years after its construction, the building was condemned as being unfit for occupancy. By 1998, all government departments housed in the building, including PM and NEC, Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and the Public Services Commission, now DPM, were moved to alternative office space throughout the capital city and became scattered. Secretary for the Department of Personnel Management, John Cully, said the day marked a historical moment for PNG, but more so for the government and its public service machinery.
And we owe this momentous occasion to the leadership of our Prime Minister, the Honourable Peter ONeill.
Mr. Cully said it was the government's intention to accommodate government departments in its own buildings in order to improve communication and coordination between government departments, improve performance and productivity, and save costs. The movement by government departments away from rented office space will realize immediate savings of at least 15 million kina. The building was refurbished by contractor Central Land Limited, and the Prime Minister was pleased with the outcome.
This is by far the state-of-the-art building in the country, and congratulations to the contractor, congratulations to Sepuka and his team.
Mr. O'Neill acknowledged the significance of the building in its early years following the country's independence. Many of the country's pioneers began their remarkable careers from inside the walls of the central government office.
Many Papua New Guineans' careers have started in this building. Some have gone on to play leading roles in our country, including that of all in the office of the Prime Minister. It holds a lot of memories for many Papua New Guineans. Sadly, we have allowed it to decline for many, many years.
The iconic building was then officially opened by the Prime Minister and senior members of the government. Deli Waigeno, National EMTV News.
The operations of the University of Natural Resources and Environment was raised in Parliament today. Rabaul MP Dr. Alan Marat questioned Higher Education Minister Malakai Tabar on allegations of misuse of funds by the previous administration led by Professor Philip Siaguru. Dr. Marat said the recent student unrest shows mismanagement and incompetency by those in authority.
Comparison with Unitec at 300.
Rabaul MP Dr. Alan Marat raised the concern during question without notice in today's parliament session. Dr. Marat said there were evidences of gross abuse by the previous administration led by Professor Philip Siaguru.
Can the Honourable Minister confirm or deny that corruption at the Papua New Guinea University of Research Science, University of Natural Resource and Environment is still rife?
Adding on the issues surrounding UNRE, Dr. Marat said recent statements by the institution to charge graduation gown fees is unnecessary. Dr. Marat questioned the Higher Education Minister why he has been quiet over these issues.
In sense of a full and proper investigation into the mismanagement of the university, to effect a recovery of the millions of kina being lost from the library, 16 million kina, now it's incomplete. Where has all the money gone? And other projects.
Minister responsible Malakai Tabar responded, stating a council is in place to administer the running of the institution while pending the investigation for the previous administration.
Yes, corruption is still happening in that institution. The administration is very weak. The person who was appointed as the acting vice-chancellor, unfortunately, just doesn't know how to deal with the issues.
Minister Tabar said efforts are in place to restore the institution. However, some employees at the main campus are still in contact with the former vice-chancellor.
I'm silent on this. There is a council, and effectively my department waits on a council to do its work. The council is independent. The council has autonomy on the institution, and as much as possible, we would like to make sure the council does its part.
The former vice-chancellor of the university was suspended due to allegations of abuse of funds. Jack Lapave Jr., National EMTV News.
National EMTV News continues after the break with news on the no-confidence vote, which Prime Minister Peter ONeill calls a waste of time. Stay with us. Welcome back to National EMTV News. Despite the slowdown in the economy, Melanesian Trustee Services has announced that Pacific Balanced Fund unit holders will receive close to 5 million kina. The dividend is for the years 2013 and 2014. Melanesian Trustee Services Limited, otherwise known as MTSL Chief Executive Officer Kennedy Wemin, said the board made the decision to pay its unit holders in response to the fund's improved value.
In a media conference this morning at the MTSL office in Port Moresby, CEO Kennedy Wemin said 2014 saw a climb in the net value of Pacific Balanced Fund's assets compared to the figures of 2013. The fund's asset net value in 2014 was 555 million kina, an improvement from the 493 million kina net asset value recorded in 2013. Mr. Wemin said PBF has seen constant satisfactory result and growth for 7 years, giving confidence in planning for the fund's future.
MTSL is proud to announce today a unit holder distribution of 5 million kina Now, PBF has been improving its position in recent years, and we are pleased that our unit holders, who are also due to receive 2013 dividend distribution at 18 toya per unit, are also now expected to get another additional distribution of 19 toya per unit.
Mr. Wemin hopes that more people and organizations that held units in the original Investment Corporation Fund of PNG would become aware of the progress being made by PBF, which now holds their investment, and contact MTSL, the trustee, to validate this.
The verification process is an ongoing exercise, and we welcome unit holders to our front office. We also are contactable by phone, email, and inquiries can be made that way. And then there's a process that unit holders go through to verify that they are legitimate unit holders of the fund.
Mr. Wemin is hopeful that additional dividends will be paid following the completion of the 2015 audits in 2 weeks' time. Deli Waigeno, National EMTV News.
The Coalition of Unions is not registered under the Industrial Organisation Act. This is according to the Labour and Industrial Relations Department. Secretary Mary Marola says the Coalition of Union therefore cannot assume the rights and protection of this legislation. The recent activities of Workers' Union have prompted the Labour and Industrial Relations Department to explain its oversight of governing union organisations in the country.
Industrial workers and organizations in the country are the responsibility of the Labour and Industrial Relations Department. The recent formation of the Coalition of Unions has prompted the Labour and Industrial Relations Department to explain its jurisdiction over union matters. The department said they have not received any information of the existence of the organization and what it stands for.
When they do talk about the conditions, pay terms and conditions, they negotiate for these terms. They might have the basic terms and conditions set by their organizations, their employers. But if they want to, if they think that they are entitled to certain improvements on the benefits, this is where we allow them at what they call a collective bargaining at the enterprise level within the management of the organization and the representatives of the work.
Unions must be registered with the Industrial Registrar before they can be recognized as a union.
The Act requires a minimum of 20 employees to form a union. Under freedom of association and collective bargaining, these organizations' members elect their executives, which is subject to the rules and constitution of those industrial organizations.
According to the Industrial Registrar, unions are obligated to follow due processes for grievances. This is mandated in the rules and constitutions that is under the Industrial Registration Act.
So the due processes are also prescribed under the Industrial Relations Act for the private sector unions, for those registered unions in the private sector to follow. While those unions registered under the Public Services Conciliation Arbitration Act, there is a due process also under the Public Service Conciliation Arbitration Act.
Meanwhile, the only affiliated and recognized workers' organization union is the PNG Trade Union Congress. The Labour Department is appealing to industrial unions to adhere to the Industrial Relations Act when pursuing grievances and not to abuse their rights for intentions outside of industrial matters. Marilyn Diaukatam, National EMTV News.
Member for Maprek John Simon expressed concerns on the unfair distribution of the country's wealth in districts. The member questioned National Planning Minister Charles Abel, stating that equal funding and support must be shared to develop all districts.
Papua New Guinea has just recently celebrated its 40th independence anniversary, and many can describe how our forefathers led the country to this date. In regard to development goals, the UN Development Report 2015 states that a handful of development goals are yet to be achieved. But with the wealth derived from our natural resources, a boom in the infrastructure of the country is obvious in some parts of the country. Maprik MP John Simon today expressed concerns as to why some districts are benefiting from the wealth of the country while others are still struggling.
Why one district in Sepik was considered for 50 million kina and continued to get funding, and not all districts in Sepik and Papua New Guinea.
The Maprik MP questioned the support given to levels of government and what procedures the finance, treasury and planning departments are using to see impact projects be completed.
The Minister, whether there is a set formula for distributing the wealth of this country for funding of impact projects under the national budget.
Planning Minister Charles Abel responded, stating the government is committed in ensuring priority projects are completed and channels of funding are not abused.
And I would suggest to say that all these submissions are important. All districts are important. And a Member of Parliament doesn't put forward a proposal to Vulapindi House if it isn't important. And it's always difficult making these choices when resources are scarce and limited.
Minister Abel told the House funding is given to all levels of government and districts must liaise and prioritize their projects.
Ultimately, the PIP process and development funding should be allocated fairly and consistently. And that is why this government has begun a process where the national government should focus on national level projects, and then all sub-national projects should be funded through a separate allocation process that is fair and decentralized.
Jack Lapava Jr., National EMTV News.
National EMTV News continues after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back to the news. A clinic in Lae City has reported tuberculosis cases increasing drastically in 2015 compared to the last 3 years. The TB section of Lae's Buimo Clinic, located at the Housing Commission suburb, opens 3 days a week and sees an average total of 20 new cases per day. Again, Bethany Harriman with this report.
There were 648 infected patients recorded last year at this clinic. In the last 4 years, the average number of victims was 450. Health staff say statistics may have increased because patients don't complete their medication once on it, lack of awareness in the past 3 years, and the HIV epidemic. Tuberculosis is a core infection. These statistics coming from the Lae Ward Council Clinic shows that more work needs to be done in communities to combat the problem. It was reported last year that 40 million kina to implement the National TB Emergency Program by a special task force wasn't released after the national government approved it. That funding was supposed to go to clinics like Buimo that treat TB patients. Buimo Clinic statistics are accurate enough to suggest that the problem is coming back. The clinic not only treats patients along the Boundary Road, but also Nawai and other squalid settlements along the Bumbu River, where a dense population of people live without proper drinking water and poor hygiene. Papua New Guinea's TB problem is known. International agencies have reported that tuberculosis remains a major public health concern. Bethany Harriman, National EMTV News, Lae.
Lae Metropolitan Commander Anthony Wagambi has cautioned social media users, in particular Facebook, not to depict faces of innocent women on pornography materials. He said this practice is getting out of control after a woman complained that a Facebook profile picture with her full name was posted alongside pornographic material. She was then asked to pay some money so that the picture won't be posted on a PNG pornographic page.
I'm upset now. I said when she got information yesterday, I said I did come like report to police. She's very upset about this because she's not a person. So she said she has nothing to hide because she's not a person involved in it, but she's just worried about why now she picks up blame now. So we want to just make it clear that there plenty of many victim in this land. That's why Facebook is good, but then there's a bad side of it, downside of it is there.
The Australian Federal Police are now working with cybercrime experts to identify those administering pornographic websites depicting Papua New Guinea women and men. Morbe's health advisor Micah Yawing has condemned the circulation of counterfeit medicine in the country, saying pharmaceutical product laws must be followed. Yawing also said drugs and other pharmaceutical items should be screened thoroughly before being allowed into the country.
In the province, where medical supply is very important, or those things that we use in this country is very important. And in terms of procurement, there's a standard that we follow, and distribution as well, the standard, what they call standard operation procedure. And the standard operation procedure we follow to make sure that whatever product in this country must be safe and must be good for the body of the people before we use them. In terms of drugs, like procurement, we're going to make sure that those drugs are acceptable and good for the life of human beings can come to Papua New Guinea. Secondly, yes, in terms of standard operation procedure, we make sure that, in terms of like dispensary, or we make sure that all the requirements must be met, like spacing.
The Supreme Court extended its hearing on the 20 million kina royalty payment made to Sirinumu Development Company and the Rauna Integrated Landowner Groups by the Treasury Department. The case was adjourned today, awaiting proper submissions to be filed by the Appellant's Council.
After cross-examining the evidence pursued in court today, Chief Justice says Salamo confirms that the 20 million kina paid by the Treasury Department follows a decision from the National Executive Council. This was affirmed by a brief written by the Treasury Minister to the Department Secretary approving its release. In 2014, the money was paid to Sirinumu Development Company and Rauna Integrated Landowner Groups as part of the Laloki River catchment royalty payments. As a result, the matter was brought before the Supreme Court by three integrated landowner groups, Omani ILG, Narime ILG and Biori ILG. The council filed submissions on issues that should the government obliged to pay the funds as per the letter, or whether the Treasury Department had followed the NEC decision in releasing the payments. The 30 affidavits presented to the Chief Justice by the Appellant's Councils on a par with the exhibits of the first and second plaintiff submissions. Meanwhile, after going through the respondent submissions filed, says Salamo pronounced them insufficient and extended the hearing to next week Tuesday. Eric Arupma, National EMTV News.
Acting Speaker Ida Ganassi today rejected the vote of no confidence motion filed by the opposition. He told Parliament a review by the Parliamentary Committee on Private Business has found that the motion failed to meet procedural requirements for tabling. Fabian Hakelitz has more.
He's got an order, he's still a member of Parliament. You are denying that right and you are misleading Parliament.
Parliament resumed at 10 this morning with the debate of the vote of no confidence motion. Acting Speaker Ida Ganassi told Parliament the documents submitted by opposition may not have contained the required signatures under Section 14 of the Constitution, with some denying to have signed. Mr. Ganassi said the Permanent Parliamentary Committee on Private Business also established one member is currently suspended from office, Vanimo Green MP Belden Nama, that prevented him from signing and supporting the motion. Also, Morobe Governor Kelly Naru signed 3 copies of the initial motion submitted on November 2, 2015, but didn't sign or support the current on March 22 this year. Furthermore, the committee, after careful consideration, found there may be possible breach of parliamentary privilege in the unauthorized use of members' signature, with this matter be referred to the Permanent Parliamentary Privileges Committee for further investigation against the Deputy Opposition Leader Sam Basel. This includes a wording imputed that the chair was biased in his decision-making because he was a member of the People's National Congress Party. The acting speaker told Parliament a Supreme Court reference was filed by the People's National Congress Party seeking proper interpretation on sections 142, 143 and 145 of the Constitution. The chair further advised all members of Parliament that no more vote of no confidence motions will be entertained until such time the Supreme Court completes the reference. Fabian Hakelitz, National EMTV News.
Meanwhile, the opposition said there is no justification on the review of the no confidence motion. In a news conference today, members of the opposition said the review lacked facts and did not represent Papua New Guinea's democracy.
Members of the opposition have expressed their concerns on the review conducted by the Permanent Parliamentary Committee on Private Business on the vote of no confidence motion. Opposition leader Don Pulia maintains the motion was still effective because members who have written to the Speaker to withdraw their signatures should not have affected the requirements.
Except that Keronearu did not sign, which I said I accept that. Okay, Belden is Sal is sick and he is not here, he's overseas. But that's not the reason they use. He is opposition anyway. But the reason they use was that he is a suspended member of parliament.
The opposition will file an application to the Supreme Court seeking clarifications on this matter. Mover of the motion and Deputy Opposition Leader Sam Basil said irregularities claimed by the committee were irrelevant on the eligibility of Vanimo Green MP Belden Nama as a member of parliament.
We have a very high chance of the chairman, and the committee is made up of all the members of the government. It's not a bipartisan committee. It's all members of the government. They may be lying to us here, so we haven't got a copy. He hasn't had the courtesy to give me a copy of the Supreme Court reference. So to this time now, we haven't got any evidence of it. It could be a lie.
The actions by the government side are threats to democracy, and the Prime Minister and his government must not look for excuses to set up barriers to stop the motion.
Notices of motion of no confidence. Test it on the floor of Parliament. If you have nothing to fear, allow it. Test your numbers. That's what the opposition is saying.
It's not bipartisan. So that starts to question whether or not that in itself is democratic. We have an acting speaker who appears to be taking instructions from the government.
Fabian Hakelitz, National EMTV News.
Prime Minister Peter ONeill says the vote of no confidence motion is a waste of time. He said there are real issues the Parliament should debate. The Prime Minister also held a news conference after today's Parliament sitting.
Wasting Parliament's time. The numbers are clearly there. If the opposition leader has the numbers, he should show them. Not playing around with 7 or 8 or 9 of the same members of Parliament, just creating issues so that we all waste our time managing these issues rather than managing the issues for the country. Mandate from the people in 2012 is very clear. I think that needs to be respected, and that is why People's National Congress Party has gone to court to seek court's interpretation, Supreme Court, to give clarity to the Supreme Court ruling.
Turning overseas now, Pakistani police say a series of raids have led to 17 arrests in Lahore after the suicide bombing at an amusement park. They say the suspects are linked to the attack that killed at least 74 people on Easter Sunday. Meanwhile, victims of the blast are struggling to survive.
A toddler's tears sting his face. His cries ring out across the ward. He is inconsolable, in extreme pain. But 3-year-old Shabazz cannot be held. He's covered in burns. Shabaz's mother is in intensive care with severe burns. His father split between 2 wards. This man is a neighbour. He's been at Shabaz's bedside since the attack. Sharing the bed, his cousin Temina, just 4 years old, shrapnel wounds on her skull. Her uncle tells me she has special needs. She doesn't know her father and sisters have died. I've lost count of how many family members have died, he tells me. Khizr's chest is peppered with ball bearings. He and his friends were just deciding which ride to go on when...
I felt like something was on fire, and there was an explosion. My friend grabbed me and pulled me to the ground. He saved my life.
His friend is lying in a bed opposite him. In each ward, we found friends, complete strangers, family, tending to their loved ones. Mama. He shouted "Mama" down the phone. Oh, his voice. His mother tells me. My heart sank as he told me a bomb's gone off. Please come to me. I'm in hospital. Now you'll notice this is a mixed ward. Young children, men and women are being kept all together because the doctors are keen that these traumatized families are kept together.
It was a horrible picture. There were about 137 patients within 20 minutes, and with every patient we had 20 other people who were well-wishers or their relatives. So we had to bring immediately about 30 doctors and 40 nurses, and we had to open up 20 more operating rooms.
Many of the patients agreed to talk to us, but others are in intensive care. We didn't film them. They haven't regained consciousness since the attack.
We had to open up the abdomen of these patients because sharp things had gone into them and they had ruptured their intestine. And we had about 10 patients who had serious head injury because their brain had been entered by these sharp objects.
Local people are coming together to deliver food and toys to the families and children like Shabazz, who will live with the physical and mental scars of this bombing forever.
Trukai Sports is next. Stay tuned for the details.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. Rugby League has been a hot favourite along the coastal villages in the central province. Most recently, the PNG Rugby Football Union introduced Rugby Sevens to a number of Rigor villages. The response was overwhelming. Former cricketer and now PNG RFU Rugby Development Officer Peter Moide has the challenge of breaking the sporting barriers in the Motuan villages with the aim of increasing the participation figures of Sevens rugby along the coastline.
As part of the International Women's Day celebration, the Papua New Guinea Rugby Football Union organized the women of Hula Village in the Central Province to play Rugby Sevens as curtain raisers for the Rugby League Nines tournament held over the Easter weekend.
Where we managed to bring together two teams of 18 players, women, to participate in curtain raiser games. The first game they played was on Friday.
During these visits, the development department were able to conduct clinics and get into rugby sessions, which included tag rugby for the children and adults to familiarize themselves with the basic skills. Prior to the curtain raiser matches, the women had already been training under the supervision of village volunteer Karo Vui, who has been really helpful in terms of organizing the players' training sessions and getting approval for Rugby Sevens to be played during the Rugby League Nines tournament.
They've also invited us to go back again. They'll be having a tournament in September during the Independence weekend, when Rugby League Nines tournament will be played again. And they've also invited us, if we are keen to go back up there and organize games again. But
given the limited time to learn and train, the women showed a lot of courage and determination to play. Elijah Levitt, National EMTV Sports.
To football now, the PNG men's national coach Fleming Seritslev has said that Papua New Guinea will have no one to fear come the OFC Nations Cup in May. Seritslev, speaking on the Football First program, made these comments after two recent friendly matches against the Solomon Islands in which PNG had succumbed to an early loss before bouncing back to victory in their second match. He said while there may be changes expected prior to the Nations Cup, he has no doubt that Papua New Guinea will be ready to take on the Pacific's best.
Again, also in the second match, got a terrible start. Solomon scored after 15 seconds. So you could be sitting on a bench and say, it'll be interesting to see how they react now.
Actually react.
Yeah, but they found the way of playing immediately after, and coming to the end of the game, we could have scored 5, 6 or 7 goals in that match. Solomon also had a couple of chances, but not nearly the amount of chances that we produced in this match. So it was actually it was a match that made me rather optimistic when we are looking ahead to the Nations Cup here. I don't think we must be afraid of anyone in the Nations Cup.
And Trukai Sports continues after the break. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. Following his announcement as captain, Henry Kalua is honoured to lead the national team in Hong Kong. The 24-year-old from a mixed parentage of Gulf and West New Britain has been a long-time feature in the national side and a quiet achiever. Taking over captaincy responsibilities from Tisa Kautu is a challenge, but one he accepts and looks forward to in the year 2016.
I'm playing now team Gimi lo gopas lo team osam captain lo boys. So mi binama master time oli name mi osam pami captain ni boys. So mi ready lo lead team lo Hong Kong na. Mi ting lo change lig. Some lo something inside lo team osam leader. Na mi like leading boys go lo bon play go change him all previous time all boys been go play no gat osam good plus something good comeback blame no rugby. So now me like tram leading all boys go bon block him good plus something lo bien.
With construction work expected to commence shortly on the Bassini grounds for the FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup, the Capital Rugby Union have been asked to move to the Tarama Barracks. CRU competition manager Paul Joseph admits this will affect the code after the season was put on hold last year. But they have had ample time to prepare and resort to an alternative venue. The change in venue, however, has forced the union to configure their competition format yet again for 2016.
We've known that we had a limited time here in Power, and our competition has been prepared for that. Move to Tarama. We've very well aware that the Under-20 FIFA World Cup, Women's World Cup, will be held here, and the grounds were go into renovations again, and hence we sat down with other clubs and tell them our options and all that. So we're back to our plan to host fortnightly games. So it commences this weekend. Only Pool A teams are playing this weekend.
And that ends Trukai Sports. The weather details when we return.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to the news. Now, before we head to the weather, another health centre on the outskirts of Lae City has recorded an increase in tuberculosis cases surrounding settlement communities. Malahang Health Centre records over 30 patients using its TB treatment centre in a week. Altogether, an estimated 200 people visit the facility every year for checkups and treatment when found to be ill with TB. Bethany Harriman with this report.
The figures at the Malahang Health Centre have doubled in the last 3 years, from 5 patients a day to 10 coming in for tests and treatment. The facility treats people in the surrounding Busu, Back Road and the Bumayong settlements.
New cases per week, we're looking about 10 plus, including extra pulmonary and pulmonary, like market TB and pulmonary. Extra pulmonary and private TB, which you cannot spread it.
Health worker Adrian Kakayan says the increase in the number of people visiting the centre is due to awareness and people are able to identify symptoms. The Malahang Health Centre has a sputum testing laboratory. At the DOT facility, the nurse here reports that 20 patients are coming in to get treatment and another 20 new cases are found out every day. But after the detection, the challenge is actual treatment for pulmonary tuberculosis, also known as market TB, that is highly contagious.
It's going up to 115 and going up. And cases will come finally because of more awareness going out on the signs and symptoms, especially that time only come inside locum examination. Come positive, so investigations came out positive, started on treatment at the same time.
Statistics have increased for various reasons. Two that stood out for health staff at the clinic were when patients don't complete their medication and lack of proper hygiene sanitation practices where they live and interact. These pictures were taken at the Malahang main market next to the bus stop 2 minutes from the health center and shows the public health risk TB has every day. It comes as the national government cuts back 50 million kina funding going to church-operated health facilities operating around the country. Many of them treat TB patients. It also comes when authorities contain an outbreak of the multi-drug resistant tuberculosis in Daru from a 132 million kina USAID funding. Bethany Harriman, National EMTV News, Leh.
And now to our finance news. The kina opened unchanged at $0.3235 in the interbank market. At Bank South Pacific, the kina was buying $0.3160, $0.4092 Australian dollars, $0.2756 euro, and 35.28 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, gold, cocoa, and copra closed higher, while coffee closed the day lower. Palm oil, crude oil, and copper also closed the day lower. And on the stock market, the Dow Jones closed at 83.55 points higher, the ASX closed at 72.53 points higher, and the All Ordinaries closed at 70.31 points higher. Taking a look at the weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow. In the southern region, a shower or two for Port Moresby, fine in Daru, and mostly fine for Kerema, Alotau and Popondetta. In the Momase region, some showers for Lae City, a shower or two for Madang, and mostly fine in Wewak and Vanimore. In the New Guinea Islands region, mostly fine for all centres. And lastly, in the Highlands region, all centres expecting a shower or two, then morning fog. Now recapping our top stories for tonight. 3 men rescued at sea after drifting over a month. The iconic central government building reopened after 2 decades, and opposition's vote of no confidence rejected. And that's the news, sports and weather for tonight, Thursday the 31st of March 2016. On behalf of the news team, I'm Lorraine Genya. Pleasant viewing. Good night.